Hi, my name is Dr. Cirecie West-Olatunji, and I am professor and director of the Center for Traumatic Stress Research at Xavier University of Louisiana. Today, I'm beginning this series of 10 interventions to work with young children, particularly those who've experienced trauma. The first one is use of popsicle sticks when counseling young children. So this is an activity of the first of 10, and we'll be talking about these popsicle sticks and also about where we can get them, how to work with them, the benefits, the challenges, and then, of course, always the purpose. What do you need? Well, as I said, you need popsicle sticks. Now, these can be found at an art supply or school supply store. They come in colors, but you can also just go to your neighborhood store and get a popsicle, ice cream or icy, whatever, and then you clean and sanitize it, and then you can use it for the project. Then you need craft items. So you need something to color in, perhaps the face, arms, legs, whatever you'd like to do. So perhaps you'd like to have some crayons, right? And maybe you'd like to have some markers, make sure that they're non-toxic. You can get construction paper to be able to make the clothes. I use felt. This is great. And also you can use scraps of fabric that you have at home or old clothes that you have. And then you can cut them up. You can get Fiskar scissors. They're great. Of course, they have the safety tips. So those are great. And then to put them on, non-toxic glue, which works very well. For hair, I like to use yarn or thread. This is good. And sometimes I like to use buttons to be able to make eyes or whatever it is that I want to use. So whatever craft items, but remember this is supposed to be a very easy, low-tech, sort of very comfortable thing to do. And so try to use things that are available to you already rather than going out and spending a lot of money. So how do you do this? You direct the parent or the caretaker to assist the child in creating these stick figures that represent family members. You should start the activity in the clinical session because you want to be able to provide feedback and then direct them to complete the task together as homework. So the idea is that you sort of show them how to get started with it, and you get as far as you can in the session, and then you ask them to complete the other family members at home and bring back the entire family already completed in the next session if at all possible. Now, the purpose, there are several purposes actually. So one is that it allows the child and the parent to engage in a bonding activity. This is important, particularly after a trauma, is that children need to feel that emotional bonding and closeness. A lot of times children are very agitated, aggravated. They experience anxiety and depression. There may be some acting out. So young children, often they act out by hitting or biting a lot of times. So what we want to do is to reestablish the bonding. We want them to feel safe, and they want them to rely on that relationship that they have with their parent, their primary caretaker. We also know that this activity is very grounding and very orienting for children. So it's a form of mindfulness. There's even a repetitiveness about the activity that allows children to sort of get into a very thoughtful state. And so we really encourage this because, again, it helps children to calm down. It allows them to restore their emotional, so that they're emotionally stable to be able to do that. Another purpose is that it reestablishes comfort and safety for children. Very, very, very often, children who've experienced trauma feel unsafe. So sometimes it's unsafe in certain places, sometimes it's unsafe with certain people, but we know that there is that feeling of a lack of safety. And so just in this process of working on these stick figures and creating these family members, that it creates a little cocoon for children, a cocoon of safety. And so it's very important to try to facilitate that in doing this project. We also know that children will identify who the key members are in their family. Now, what's interesting about that is that when I've done this exercise with children before, sometimes there's a discrepancy between whom the parents consider to be key family members and whom the children do. So it's very important that we stay child-centered, because we don't want to impose our understanding and our beliefs and our perspectives on the children. We're going to learn so much more by listening to them. So be very careful about parents intruding and being able to dictate to children, no, that's not a member of the family, that's the neighbor, or that's a member of, our church or our synagogue or our mosque or whatever. It's like, so they need to understand that children have to say whomever. I think what's really interesting about this is that when I've done this work with young children before, by the end of my time in working with them, when I'm ready to terminate and say goodbye, they usually bring in one more stick figure, and it's usually me. It's so interesting that after working with these children, that the child believes that I'm a member of the family, probably because of the emotional bonding that occurs, which is really nice. So that's very satisfying. Finally, one of the other purposes for this project and this activity is it gives the child the opportunity to create a narrative about his or her system. So after they've created, or even while they're working on the arts and crafts of it, of developing the family members, and certainly after all the players are created, that the child then creates a narrative. So there is dramatic play used in working with the family members, and so we do create something that is very unique to each child. So that's so much better than buying a family, and I've done that before, where you buy some dolls and figurines from the store, and then you ask children to do dramatic play with those. I like this better because the family is very unique to their family, so we learn a lot more. Well, what are the benefits? One is it allows for child-centered therapy, as I said. So that means that the child is really telling their story. It means that they're talking about, they're telling us how someone looks to them. They're talking about how they feel about the different members in their family. They often are telling they're giving their perspective on how people are interacting with each other in their family. And so this is great to be able to hear this story from the children. This is great, particularly when we're dealing with very, very young children who may not have the ability to articulate their feelings and thoughts at a much more sophisticated level as, say, a school-age child. We still get a lot of information from them when they're creating these families and when they're engaging in dramatic play with these family members. The second is that it's non-directive. This is great because the child is not being told what to do, so they're open and free to express themselves and be able to include whatever in it. And this is great because children often will talk about things in the use of these dolls that they haven't talked about previously. And I think it's just opening it up for them and allowing them to be free in expressing themselves that really helps them. Finally, it facilitates a therapeutic relationship between the parent and the child for sustainable healing, growth, and recovery. What I mean is that we want parents to be empowered. Often when children have experienced some kind of trauma, parents often feel helpless to be able to help their children to be able to recover. This gives parents a very concrete task in which they can engage with their children. So they become part of the healing. Further, they continue to do it. So the work is where it should be, not in session with me. I can get it started, I can facilitate, but the real work is done in the lives, the daily lives, in an organic way between the parent and the child and other key members of the family. And of course, that means that the healing continues even after we've terminated our sessions. The work continues. It also means that parents become agents, and they can advocate for other people that they know, their friends, their family members, and they can make recommendations to be able to help other children in need. Of course, it comes with challenges, though. So one of the things that I found is that I am often giving homework to the parent, but sometimes they don't do it. So they'll come back in the next session and they haven't made any more dolls, or they haven't even finished the doll that we started. So completion of tasks can be a bit challenging, and it's something for us to remember. But, you know, we work with them. The second is maybe the opposite of that, is that we have those type A personality parents. And because I've said finish it, if the child is not interested or they're not motivated to continue to work on the stick figures, the parent will finish the task for them. That's not what we want. We really don't want that, because we want to maintain the child-centered therapy. So we have to remember, when we give the directive, when we give the homework in that first session, that we want to provide guidelines for the parent to tell them, whatever you do, please do not finish the task yourself. If the child is having difficulty completing it, bring it back, bring that concept or that challenge back into session, and we'll work on it. We'll figure it out. Finally, because of a child's developmental age, they may not have the dexterity, for instance, to be able to cut with the scissors and so on. We can assist with that, but we are not to insert our own narrative, our own lived experience into the process. We just want to assist them with the tasks that they developmentally cannot do. So pay attention to that. Skill level. Well, I think if we use a scale of 1 to 3, wherein the 1 is for a beginner and 3 is experience, this activity is a 1, meaning that a beginning therapist, even an intern, graduate student before he or she becomes independently licensed, they could do this activity. So it's a low-level activity. I think just about anyone can do it, and certainly we're teaching parents to do it. Can be done. A lot of times when I talk about this project, therapists are wondering, for what kind of client might this be good? What kind of case would this be good for? So even though this is 8-year-old, and primarily I'm talking about 0 to 5, I think this is a good example. So I'm thinking of the case of the 8-year-old African-American female who was brought in by her biological mom because the child was experiencing a lot of behavior problems, both at school and at home. After further investigation, we realized, this all began when mom had a new baby. The baby's now 4 years old. So this started with, okay, let's start with creating the family members and finding out, is she going to create a doll for the new baby or not? And if not, let's explore that. And of course, the idea would be to get her to go ahead and create one. Another is that we can do some restorative work. So that means that we can get an idea of what's currently happening, but then we can restructure it. So we can help them to understand that there are other possibilities, there are other endings that we can create for ourselves. So now, now that you know how to do this, you need to get started. So what I recommend is that you first go ahead and purchase your popsicle sticks and your craft items. As I said, I'm not really recommending that you go out and get, necessarily the high-end popsicle sticks. I'm not necessarily recommending that you run out and get, the fabric and things like that. I think the best thing to do is find out, what do you have hanging around at home? What can you use, scraps of paper and so on. Like I said, we all have buttons that are all over, loose buttons, lost buttons, and so on. So think about that. Think about using what you have to be able to do that. So gather all the items together, and then you know what? Why don't you create your own family? I think that's a great idea, because then you'll be able to empathize more and better with your clients to understand, what does it take to create that family system as you decide who are the key family members in your system. So I recommend that you get up, Get out and create your own family system, see how it works, and then go ahead, think about using it. Once you use it, please contact me. I'd love to hear from you to see how is it working for you and your clients. You can email me, telephone me, check out our website. We've got more resources there, or you can hit me up on social media, Twitter and Instagram at XULA_CTSR. As always, this video was made possible with support from the NYU BOPS Library, Digital Studio, and Faculty Resource Network staff. Thank you so much, and I'll see you for the next intervention.